Yeah, real early. And as I said at the onset, we don't have to wait for Ohtani to sign. He's not holding up everything that's going on behind him. Philadelphia, Aaron Nola talked to a couple of teams, never made a visit. 7-year, $172 million deal. Guy's becoming co-ace on the Phillies staff. That's $24.5 million per season for one of the top pitchers in the National League, and that's probably the kind of dollar value that will be attached to the other marquee free agent, Blake Snell. So Aaron Nola stays in Philadelphia. The Cardinals, I don't understand this at all. I mean, they are really short on pitching. Adam Wainwright has now officially retired. They had a lot of injuries. They've decided not to tender a couple of the young pitchers that faltered and had arm problems. We keep thinking they've got a load of outfielders, that there's going to be a big trade coming. One of those outfielders who's an everyday player is going for an arm. But the Cardinals signed Lance Lynn, gave up 44 home runs. Now, granted, they got him at an economic price of 1 year, $10 million. Then they went out and got Kyle Gibson, who was the only veteran on the Baltimore Orioles staff, and he signed a 2-year deal. But he had an ERA of 4.75. So I don't quite understand why St. Louis is spending this money on those guys without making the run at Blake Snell yet. And that was one of the first teams that was reported. So don't understand what the Cardinals are doing there. Arizona, they had talked to Justin Turner about jumping from Boston as a free agent. They changed their mind. They traded with Seattle. They got ex-Cincinnati Red Mariner slugger Eugenio Suarez come play third base. Hit 26 home runs last year. Does not hit for a big average and strikes out a lot, but does hit the long ball. I think he's got 248 home runs in the course of his career. So he goes to anchor third base for Arizona. He'll hit home runs there at Chase Field. They also signed a top minor leaguer. His name is Andre Chaparro, came from the Yankees. 35 home runs at AA and AAA last year, first baseman.
Oh.
So he's gone to Arizona. So suddenly Arizona's got power on the corners that they did not have before. So that's interesting. White Sox trading everybody. They make the big deal with Atlanta. They trade one of their relief pitchers to the Braves. They get once promising Braves ace Mike Soroka, and they get number 1 draft pick pitcher Jared Schuster. Soroka's had nothing but injuries the last couple of years, a lot of flukish stuff. First it was a shoulder, then it was a calf, knocked him out for an extended period. Atlanta just moved him off the roster. So White Sox in total rebuild mode. Colorado Rockies, they need pitching everywhere. They went and they claimed Cal Quantrill from the Cleveland Guardians, the ex-Padre. So he's coming back to the National League West. He had pitched well with the Padres, pitched really well for a couple of years with Cleveland, had shoulder issues this past year, had a big contract number. The Guardians said no. Rockies said yes. So he goes immediately. He's healthy, I'm told, goes immediately in Colorado rotation. Atlanta's been moving young arms. Not only did they get rid of Soroka, they traded Kyle Wright to Kansas City. He was a promising starter, but he's had a year and a half of setbacks with the shoulder. They gave up on him. Atlanta did get relief pitcher Aaron Bummer from the White Sox in the deal. And Milwaukee, fire sale. Holy cow. Just they're getting rid of everybody. Next guy to vacate, aside from the pitchers we've talked about, might be Christian Yelich. So right out of the gate, free agent signing. So, John, pick a team there. We talked about, what do you think?
You talked earlier about the Cardinal way. I mean, how in the hell is Lance Lynn, consistent with the Cardinal way? That doesn't make any sense, because usually they have really good veterans, or they've got some hot young guys in their system that they bring up. And Lance Lynn ain't either one of those.
He's between middle of.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm curious. They do have a lot of outfielders, though. So something else is another shoe's going to drop. I guess this is the end of Evan Longoria, right? Did he retire?
Free agent.
He's a free agent.
But they elected not to keep him because he wasn't really productive. He's not what he used to be back in the day in Washington, or even what he was San Francisco. Maybe he surfaces somewhere else, but it'll probably be at a lower price tag. He didn't do much till they got to postseason, but then he played well.
Yeah. So he was third base, and out Suarez. And I remember there was a time when Padre, rumor mill was talking about Suarez, as obviously before Machado came here. So yeah, he's a good player. But it is interesting that it seems like, well, the Aaron Nola signing was a big deal for the Phillies, but all the other ones are kind of like smaller, medium-sized deals. I mean, there's a lot of big ones that are going to drop. You know, Blake Snell, did you see him at the game last night?
Mhm.
You know, he kind of kicked it off for the Seahawks. You know, Seattle guy. I mean, the Mariners and Blake Snell, that could be an interesting match if the Mariners are willing to step up.
Do they have space on their roster for both him and Scott Boras? Knowing full well the price tag. The price tag is always stapled next to a marquee free agent name if it's a Scott Boras client, and that becomes the issue. And with the history of pitchers breaking down, if Boras is asking for 5 years, 125 for Blake Snell, and nobody that I know of is giving pitchers outside of maybe Garrett Cole those kind of contracts.
Well, Philly just did. I mean,
Well,
so, yeah.
with Aaron Nola,
Yeah.
I agree.